Okay, audience of 5. Hand it off to Anna. All right. M&M's. Sweet, chocolatey, crunchy. Our kids love them. Make great potty training treats, right? But what if they came with a warning label on them? Would you still eat them? Would you give them to your kids? What if the warning label said, may cause cancer, severe allergic reactions, tumors, headaches, infertility, raging tantrums, aggression, loss of control, and hyperactivity? You wouldn't touch them. You wouldn't let your kids get close to them. You would confiscate them. You'd forbid them even being in your house, and you'd lecture your friends who still ate them. M&M's Mars knows this, and so does Kraft, Coca-Cola, and Hershey's, and all the other large manufacturing food conglomerates. It does sound far-fetched and ridiculous, and I'm sure you can't imagine how something as yummy and wonderful as M&M's could be so toxic and awful. Today, I'd like to suggest to you that they should have a label like that. In fact, I'm going to go farther and suggest that they should be banned from our food production entirely. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you some things that's going to surprise you. First of all, I want to share with you my personal experience. I have a 6-year-old son named Eli. He was born raring to go. He was born with wide-eyed wonder, staring at the world, and as soon as he was mobile, he was into everything. He hated to sleep, and he really kept me on my toes. I was able to keep up with him until he was about 18 months old, and at that point he had stopped pretty much eating all baby food and was eating regular grown-up foods. His normal need for independence and strong-willedness, it was amplified. He started having rages, fits, tantrums, and his tantrums went on and on and on. He was impudent, headstrong, and frighteningly impulsive. He refused to nap or go to bed at night. He ran away from me every chance he got, and once his mind was set on something, he just would not let it go until I was the one in tears. When he started preschool, his teachers were exasperated. He refused to follow their instructions. He threw fits. He wouldn't stay in his seat, and he started to become aggressive towards other children, to the point that our family friends wouldn't play with us anymore. It got so bad that I decided to take him out of school, and I started homeschooling him. My husband and I lamented over this behavior. We tried every strategy we could think of. His out-of-control behavior set a tone in our household that disrupted and frustrated everyone in it. We read every parenting book we could get our hands on. We tried every discipline technique we could come up with, and nothing worked. And at our wit's end, we finally talked to our pediatrician about it at his 5-year-old well-child visit. And she suggested that we try the Feingold diet, which, among other things, eliminates artificial colors from his diet. It was a really daunting task, but we were so desperate, we thought, what could it possibly hurt at this point? In only 6 weeks, the results we saw were astonishing. His impulsivity had completely disappeared. His rages were gone. The focused, headstrong refusal to do anything we asked unless he got his way completely vanished. He could sit at the dinner table instead of getting up from it over and over, and the aggression was no longer an issue. He finally responded to the discipline in our household, and hope and peace was restored to our home. As a result of this, I became painfully aware of how the ingredients in our food affect us. It was a really inconvenient truth, but it's one I'm glad I learned. For my son, artificial colors in his food are like sugar in a gas tank. When he doesn't have the right fuel, he just can't run right. And this discovery has led me on a journey of discovering more. What I discovered, to me, was shocking, dreadful, and life-changing. And I want to start by giving you some background. Dyeing food is an ancient practice, but traditionally, natural ingredients were used to dye the food just to make it look more attractive. In the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution in America brought the onset of processed foods and the use of chemical dyes in the foods. Initially, there were lots of different kinds of chemical products to dye food, but some of them were just plain deadly, and the government had to step in In 1906, the United States Food and Drug Act was created, and it ruled that only dyes that were known to be safe could be put in food. And that hasn't changed. In this year, in 2010, the FDA, their website says that 9 dyes are still currently permitted. But the tests, there are tests saying that these dyes are not in fact safe. Dr. Benjamin Feingold was a prominent allergist in California in the 1970s. He had a patient who had severe hives, and to treat her, he suggested this special diet, removing all additives along with other things from her food. She also had behavioral problems so severe that she had been diagnosed with a personality disorder. After only 2 weeks on Dr. Feingold's diet, her psychiatrist called Dr. Feingold and said, "What did you do to my patient?" In 2 weeks, her behavioral improvement has improved more than in the entire 2 years I've been treating her. And so that's how Dr. Feingold really accidentally discovered the connection between food and behavior. After he did more research, he published his findings, and initially they were very well received by the medical community, but they were not very well received by the food industry. And in the early 1980s, the food manufacturers formed their own research group called the Nutrition Foundation and their National Advisory Committee, which sounds very official, and it also sounds like a government agency, but is not. It, in fact, is funded by, and their membership is limited to, people who work for Coca-Cola, Dow, and Kraft. This group funded studies at universities, but they either skewed or ignored the data completely and released statements and launched a publicity campaign saying that there were no effects, basically trying to debunk Dr. Feingold's findings. Furthermore, the pharmaceutical companies who make big money treating behavioral disorders and all of the maladies caused by artificial colors, they don't want you to know the truth either. Hitler's master of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, once said, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it." And that is exactly what has happened. For decades, despite repeated studies and personal testimonies that can prove without a doubt that artificial colors affect human behavior and their health, the propaganda machine, which is funded by the big money of the food and drug industry, has kept this lie alive. If you hear or read that artificial colors have no effect on behavior, you can be sure that there is a big manufacturing company behind that lie. Recent studies exposing the lie have come to surface, and the gears of that propaganda machine are starting to slip. The most recent and most well-respected study was published in The Lancet, which is a very reputable British medical journal, and it was performed and funded by the British Food Standards Agency, which is the FDA, equivalent to the FDA in Great Britain. According to the article in the New York Times, this study conclusively and scientifically confirmed a link that had long been suspected by parents. And that is that food dyes cause hyperactivity in children. What's more significant is that it proved that dyes not only affect children who are predisposed to hyperactivity, which many other studies had already proven and which people were starting to believe and connect and endorse, but this study proved that it caused hyperactivity in kids in general, all kids, whether they previously were disposed to it or not. The study was so groundbreaking and so significant that in 2008 the British Parliament called for all artificial colors to be removed from all food in the UK. And it made such a big impact in Europe that the European Parliament voted that food items containing artificial dyes must now have warning labels saying this product may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children.